If you've been scrolling through endless lists of workstations, watching demo videos, and still can't decide which keyboard actually justifies the price tag, this review is here to cut through the noise. I've sat down with a few of the big-name synths in the past, but the Roland Fantom 6EX is the one that keeps popping up in conversations about all-in-one production rigs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes the Fantom 6 a bit of a puzzle is that it's not just a keyboard, it's a whole studio in a single box. The bundle throws in an adjustable stand, a sustain pedal, a DVD with instructional material, access to online piano lessons, and even a polishing cloth with the Roland logo. That sounds like a lot of extras, but the real question is whether those extras translate into day-to-day workflow benefits or just add to the upfront cost. Let's start with the core of any workstation, the sound engine. Roland calls it ZEN-CORE synthesis, and it's the engine behind the massive library that ships with the Fantom 6. In practice, that means you get a palette ranging from classic analog-style basses to modern cinematic pads without having to load third-party libraries. When I loaded up a track for a short film demo, the built-in orchestral patches held their own against a dedicated sample library, no noticeable latency, and the articulation controls responded instantly. For a composer who needs a broad sonic palette without juggling multiple VSTs, that breadth is a genuine time-saver. The expanded sound library with ACB technology is another buzzword that can feel vague until you test it. ACB stands for Advanced Curve-Based Modulation, which essentially gives you smoother, more nuanced control over parameters like filter sweeps or envelope shaping. I tried using it on a bass line that required a slow, evolving filter movement. The result was a fluid sweep that didn't sound choppy or quantized, something that can be tricky to achieve with older workstations. If you spend a lot of time sculpting evolving textures for ambient tracks or electronic beats, that extra modulation depth becomes a real workflow boost. Now, the Fantom 6 isn't just about sounds. It markets itself as the ultimate production hub. That claim rests on its integration capabilities. The keyboard has USB audio/MIDI, CV/gateouts, and a built-in audio interface that can stream up to 24-bit/96 kHz audio straight into a DAW. In a typical home studio setup, I connected the Fantom 6 to my laptop via USB, launched my DAW, and recorded a full arrangement keyboard parts, drum loops from the internal sequencer, and even routed a synth line through the CV out to a modular Eurorack. The latency was negligible, and the workflow felt seamless. For musicians who already own a laptop and want a central hub that can replace a separate audio interface, the Fantom 6 really delivers on that promise. Let's talk about the physical package. The 61-key semi-weighted keys feel responsive enough for both piano-style playing and synth leads. The included adjustable stand is sturdy, but it does add a few extra inches to the footprint, something to keep in mind if you're dealing with a cramped bedroom studio. The sustain pedal is a basic expression pedal, not a high-end weighted pedal, so if you're a classical pianist who expects the feel of a grand piano pedal, you might find it underwhelming. However, for most pop, rock, or electronic players, the pedal does the job. One of the most unique pieces of this bundle is the access to online piano lessons and the instructional DVD. I logged into the lesson portal a week after unboxing, and the lessons are structured like a short course, covering everything from basic chord voicings to advanced arpeggio techniques. While the lessons aren't a replacement for a private teacher, they add real educational value for beginners who bought this as a learn-to-play package. If you're already an experienced player, you may consider those lessons an unnecessary extra, but they do justify part of the higher price tag for a newcomer. On the downside, the Fantom 6 screen is a 7-inch color display that, while clear, can feel cramped when you dig deep into multi-track editing or complex routing. The interface is menu-driven, and even though Roland has streamlined a lot of the navigation, there's still a learning curve if you're migrating from a simpler keyboard. In my testing, setting up a custom multi-effect chain took about 10 minutes of scrolling through submenus, a bit longer than the drag-and-drop workflow you'd find on a software DAW. If you need instant, on-the-fly tweaking during a live performance, you might find the menu system a little slow. Another consideration is the price. The Fantom 6EX bundle sits in the high three-figure range, and while the included accessories add value, you could technically buy the same keyboard without the stand, pedal, and lesson subscription for a lower price. The key question is whether those extras will actually be used. For a teacher setting up a classroom, the stand and lesson content could be a huge win, turning the unit into a teaching station right out of the box. For a gigging synth player who already has a custom rig, you may end